Hello, and welcome to our Produmex WMS picking, packing, and shipping presentation. To begin, let's define our terms. Picking is the process of retrieving inventory from its permanent storage location in our warehouse in anticipation of shipping it to either the customer, transferring it to another warehouse or maybe a third-party logistics warehouse, or preparing it for use as raw materials in a production order. Packing is the process of taking those picked goods and preparing them for shipment. This may involve putting them in shipping cartons and or on pallets. It might involve creating labels that would be applied to the cartons or the pallets or perhaps the inner cartons. Shipping is the process of taking those prepared goods and removing them from inventory. To begin with, we always want to understand, how do you pick? How do operations in your facility go ahead? How do you want to see your operations occur in the future? Here's a few example questions. How long does it take the warehouse team to find all items on a typical order? Do they have to walk all over the warehouse, or is it really easy for them to locate product? Do you have many orders that all require the same small number of unique items? Or do most of your orders have different items on them? Do you need to pack different items together into shipping cartons? Or do you ship using the case or pallet that you've picked from permanent storage? Do you use your own trucks for customer delivery? Or do your customers sometimes pick up goods? Do you have different pickers working together to pick items on the same order? Do you ship goods immediately as soon as those goods have been picked? Or do you maybe have to stage those goods so that they can wait for the truck to arrive later in the day? Do you need to enforce first in, first out, or first expiry, first out stock rotation rules when you're picking? You would typically have to do this in the food industry and the chemical industry, but there's a lot of other scenarios where this doesn't apply. Does your team pick from any bin in the warehouse, or do you have designated pick bins that the pickers always pick from, and then the quantities in those pick bins are replenished as needed? The answer to those questions and many more questions are what we use to determine which of our Produmex WMS picking options might be appropriate for your various mix of orders. So for example, order picking is the simplest approach. We use order picking to handle cases where you have a lower order volume, smaller number of orders, but perhaps picking each item on the order might be more complex. So you pick all the goods on one order, then you move on to the next order. Waiving is the process where we take various items from many different orders and we merge them into a common pick, and then we pack them and ship them on their appropriate pick lists. So basically, wave picking is like a consolidated pull. Zone picking is used where we have several pickers who need to pick items on the same order. Multi-picking is sort of a hybrid between order picking and wave picking. It lets us go ahead and pick for multiple orders in one walk through the warehouse and temporarily store those picked items into separate sections within our picking cart. Ad hoc picking is a tool that lets the picker decide which unit of inventory they're going to pick. This is something that might be appropriate in many industries, but where we have to deal with stock rotation, such as in the case of FIFO picking, first expiry, first out, we wouldn't use ad hoc. Ad hoc is often used to process our will call and our route-based orders, and it is an option for the various other types of orders. Our orders could be processed in 1, 2, or 3-step flows. So we might want to immediately ship the goods as soon as they're picked. Another approach would be to ship immediately after picking and packing has been achieved. And finally, we might have the full 3-step process where one group picks, another group packs, and another group ships. We might go ahead and set up certain pick bins in our warehouse that are going to be the only place where our pickers are going to pull product from. And then we'll use replenishment to refill those pick bins so that we make sure that they're always stocked appropriately based on known sales history. When we're trying to determine the footpath through the warehouse for our pickers to follow, we can do that by a number of different sequences or sort patterns. The most obvious is bin code, but for each bin you also have something called a sequence value, and at a third level each bin has an alternate identification code. So why would this be important? Well, let's say you've got existing bins, existing labels, but you want to create a more efficient footpath through the warehouse. You might create a different sequence value on each bin so that you get more efficient travel. You have the option to set up the environment so that certain types of orders use specific WMS picking flows. So for example, certain customer orders might be set up to do a will call picking flow. Others would use a standard flow that we just described. You can create customer specific labels, customer specific pick bins, customer specific replenishment levels, and customer specific expiration date limits. Briefly, expiration date limits are set globally so that you may have a rule that a certain item must have 120 days of expiration days left on it for it to be shippable. But you might have certain customers who accept that same item with only 60 days of shelf life remaining. We can take this further and fine tune our process. Here's an example. We can talk about packing remarks so that on the fixed packing station, we want to show special remarks informing the person how to pack this item. We can choose to suppress packing remarks, force the user to click OK to them, or flash them on the screen for a few seconds. We have the option to allow us to pick bulk quantities and or full pallets from our non-picking locations. We have options to define the order of the items to pick on the mobile device, as we said before, by bin code, bin sequence, etc. We can fine-tune our process with options to collect additional information, such as package dimensions or the trucker's signature, trucker's ID, name or identification for certain types of orders. There's additional capabilities built into the system you can take advantage of. You can process customer returns. You can do bulk picking. You can undo the picking. So if the office calls down to the warehouse and says, stop this particular order, don't ship this order, you can do an undo picking and return the picked goods to stock. Another example of fine tuning is the ability to do what we call reverse stop loading when you're picking goods for use in routes of your own truck. We do that so that you get a reverse load on the truck so that as you go to each stop, you get an efficient offload of the truck. So let's take a look at Produmex picking in action. Our first example is going to be a simple one-step picking scenario. We have a sales order, we have a pick list, we pick that item, it automatically creates a delivery and an invoice, and that's the end of our process. So let's look at this in action. We'll begin by taking a look at our sales order. So on our sales order, we have an item, quantity to our Produmex WMS managed warehouse, and some basic other information about the order. Our remarks document what this order is about. Now, before we go any further, we're going to go ahead and look at the shipping type. The shipping type is set up as something called counter sales. What does this mean? This means that we've created this entry to do automatic shipping and automatic invoicing. So when we process this order, he is going to automatically generate the SAP delivery and the invoice, and then move on to the next task on the handheld. So let's go ahead and create our pick list. Okay, pick list is now created. Requesting that we pick 2 of that item. And at this point now we're going to switch over to our handheld device. So we'll log into the device. This is what happens on the shop floor when a material handler opens up his mobile device, logs into the device, and then goes ahead and performs the various functions that need to happen with the picking operation. So in this case, we'll go into sales and we'll go into picking. Again, this is the simple one-step scenario. So I'm going to go down to our pick list and select that entry. The system goes ahead and automatically does its allocation of the goods in the warehouse. So now it knows where it wants to pick those from. We select the item we're going to pick. We indicate there's no movable location. We're not using a cart. Now we walk over to the recommended bin. The feet are telling us to walk over to that bin and scan the barcode label. And I just did that. Now he says, go ahead and scan the product that we're picking. And I do that. And now the system asks us to enter the quantity. All of this information can be defaulted as you see here, or we could not default the value. Additionally, if the item has got an image, we can click on the image icon and see a picture on the handheld of that device, of that item. Let's pick the whole quantity here. And we're going to then allow the system to do a little processing as it completes the pick function on the device. Now he's going to create our SAP documents. Now this is happening in real time. There is no import, no export, no upload, no download, nothing for the IT team to care and feed for. He's creating the SAP documents in real time. Now it's printing our packing slip and finally creating the sales invoice. And our process is done on the handheld. We'll come back over to SAP. We're still on that same sales order. We're going to go ahead and refresh that record. You'll see that the order is now refreshed and it becomes now indicating it's a closed order. So this order is shipped. Let's take a look at how that looks to us. So we'll go down to our relationship map and we see on our relationship map, not only is there a delivery, but we also have our invoice. So if we wanted to take a look at that invoice, we could double click on him, drill right into that AR document. This will show up on your AR aging report. all driven from the handheld device. And your audit trail in the remarks matches what's in the sales order with the additional information explaining the history. So that's our simple one-step process with auto shipping and invoicing turned on. Now let's take a look at a little bit more complicated scenario, a little bit more sophisticated, and frankly, a much more realistic scenario. Here we have a total of 4 orders. The first order has 1 of item A, 2 of B, 3 of C. Second order has 4 of A, 5 of B. Third order, 6 of A, 7 of B, 8 of C. And finally, the last order, 9 of B and 10 of C. Taken together, this would be 10 separate pulls if we were doing order picking. But with wave picking, that gets consolidated onto a single wave, and we get a much more efficient pull of the items from the warehouse. So with wave picking, you actually wind up with 3 separate pulls, or perhaps 4, depending on if there's stock in multiple bins. So let's take a look at how this looks in our SAP environment. So the first thing we'll do is we'll go back and show you those 4 orders. So this is the 4th order, our 3rd order, our 2nd order, and our 1st order. So the way we do this in SAP is instead of going and shepherding each order through the system like we did in order picking, creating the pick list here and then manually picking the order, moving on to the next, we come over to Produmex and use our open sales order report. And this report is going to go ahead and show us all the open documents. And it's going to let us create pick lists for all the documents in our system so that we can have a much more effective picking process. So let's go ahead and indicate the dock where we're going to stage our goods. And then we're going to come down to the bottom. And we're going to select our 4 orders. And now we're going to generate our pick list from these orders. Now this could have been 300 orders if we wanted to process the whole morning's picks. We might have done it that way. So now our next step is to basically select all the items and generate pick lists for them. So at this point now, our pick lists are created, and we can go ahead and use our open document report to review those pick lists. And now we can see these last 4 pick lists are for our 4 items, 4 orders we were just processing. Let's go back to the presentation for a minute. So in this case, we've got our 4 orders. We've created our 4 pick lists. The next step is to create one wave for all 4 of those pick lists. So we'll go ahead and select the orders, and we're going to go and create a wave using the Make New Wave button. To do this, when this is done, you'll see that this wave number changes to the same number for all 4 entries. So now it's wave 167 for all 4 entries. So our next step is to go back on the handheld device, go back to the main menu, select the main menu again, go into sales, go into our picking function. And now when we scroll down, we'll see that pick list 167 with our 4 pick lists on it. So we're going to select that guy. So he takes an extra minute to go and look at all the inventory and decide which units of inventory are the most appropriate to pick. And so he went through and he said, okay, in this situation, my inventory exists in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I can pull this in 5 picks. So he's recommending that we go ahead and pick this item from that bin. We'll select to do that. So we'll walk over to that bin. I'm going to say no movable location, which means I'm putting it on a pallet. I'm going to scan my bin, and we're going to go ahead and pick that item. Now he's going to ask us for the product. I would scan the barcode for that product or select him from the list if my system's configured to allow me to do that. And he wants me to do a bulk pull of 21 units. So we'll just finish this process. We'll walk over to the next indicated bin, scan that bin, select the product, confirm the quantity, or enter the quantity if your system's set up to work that way. Move to the next recommended bin. If there isn't stock in the recommended bin, we can pick from other locations. And again, the ad hoc picking is especially designed for that scenario. We'll scan the item. Two more to go. We'll go ahead and select the next item. Move over to the bin indicated, recommended. Select the product to be picked. And confirm the quantity. And finally, the last pick. Those goods are in a different bin, a few bays down. And we need just one more from that one, and those items are picked. System goes ahead and prints our label and asks us, do we want to reprint? Normally we turn this function off so we never get prompted to reprint the label. But in this case, I'm doing it so that we could show you what that label would look like. So we'll go ahead and open up that document. And you can see this pallet label identifying the shipping pallet. There's no information about product because this pallet contains mixed product. And at this point, our picking process is complete, and the system asks us, do you want to go ahead and select another pick list, or we're going to back up and do something different. So this is the wave process. This is the process of doing that consolidated picking that gives us a much more efficient footpath through the warehouse than if we were going to do order pulling. So I'd like to thank you for watching our presentation on Produmex picking, packing, and shipping, and look forward to the chance to see you in the next upcoming videos.